and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a comparison between Affinity Designer and Adobe Illustrator. So what I want to do today is make a simple doily pattern that we can use. So you're going to be learning about symbols and also a little bit how we can work with Illustrator to do a similar thing but not quite. So
Deb says morning.
Morning, Deb. So we'll see how we go. First of all, I'm going to focus on Affinity
Carol says
Designer
morning.
as I know more of you have it. And morning, Carol. And then we will do Illustrator as a bit of a bonus. But as I go through the Affinity Designer one, I'm going to chat a bit about why Illustrator is different and ways that I think Affinity Designer actually does this better. So if you do have any questions at any point, please let us know. Ian is commenting as himself today for a change, so that we can only currently see comments on Facebook. So I will say hi, Mum, and pretend you're watching even if you're not yet.
So Trace says morning, Louise says morning, Linda says morning.
Morning, morning, morning. Excuse me. So I've started a new canvas with the active area of the
Thea.
12 by 12. Morning, Thea.
Wendy.
Morning, Wendy. So do put in the comments if you use Illustrator, and I will endeavour to get it done in Affinity Design a little sooner. So with our new blank sheet, we're going to start by creating a guide shape that is roughly what we want to create our doily to. So if you wanted to do an oval shaped doily, then put an oval in at this point. If you wanted to do like a square layer or rectangular mat, you can do that too. Just get a little bit more complex with corners, but hopefully I will give you enough of the tools to be able to fix that too.
Joyce says good morning too.
Morning, Joyce.
And Louise is calling me a chicken for not pronouncing Bordeaux instead of saying good morning.
Ah.
Joyce says she uses Illustrator.
Okay, so I will endeavour to get there, honest. If not, I will try and do a second part next week, so next Thursday. And we'll see how we go. So you're going to draw a circle, like so. Now, I am going to put a stroke on it. I'm going to set my stroke to a light blue. And I'm going to take out the fill. So now if I click off it, you can see that I have a blue circle. In our layers panel, which if it's not already showing it on screen, you can find it in our studio, and then just there is your layers, and that one is your stroke, so if you need to control that at any point. And the other one you want to make sure you can see is symbols. So I'm going to open that one, and it's going to look pretty empty to start with, but it won't do by the end. We're going to lock our circle layer. So this is important. You're going to lock anything that you don't want to click on by accident. Also going to pop a vertical guide and a horizontal guide so that I can see the centre of my circle nice and easily. So in Illustrator so far you will have done exactly the same process. And make sure your smart guides are on and it will click to the centre for you too.
Nikki says hello, and Thea says you tried Illustrator but she prefers Designer.
Yeah, I find Designers easier for what we use it for most of the time. There are things that Illustrator does better, like patterns and things like that. But when it comes to the scan and cut definitely prefers the files from Designer to Illustrator. Okay, so now that we've got our kind of guide in, we're going to zoom in a little bit. Now bear in mind, if you zoom in too much, your little shapes are going to become even littler. So try and keep things nice and simple for this first one.
Nikki has Affinity Design and she needs to learn how to use it.
Okay. So,
There is a course, isn't there?
there is a course. Yes, we did a course, and you should be able to purchase entrance to it on Buy Me a Coffee. If not, let me know and we can always do another one. So I'm going to start off with my pen tool. I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to come down to this point here and I'm going to click and drag. Now at this point, don't worry that it's not quite getting where we need it to. We're going to change to our node tool, so A on the keyboard if you want to use your keyboard shortcuts. Press and hold shift, and we're going to drag this handle outwards. So we're looking at this bit of the line here. You want to get that matching. Now down here, we need to do the same so that it is following the curve of our guide. So if there's anything that is a bit off, ideally you want these two handles to be the same length.
Joy said, lol, I feared it's not Illustrator, it's the one you're using. Affinity, lol. Brilliant.
That's okay.
And apparently Mark started teaching Louise. Poor Mr. C.
Oh dear, what's he done to deserve that? Okay, so with that line selected, we're going to first of all change it from being this blue colour, and we want it to go to black because we actually want this as part of our design. We're going to make it a dashed line. You're going to make sure it has round caps. The joins don't matter so much because we're working on a circle anyway. Our line we're going to keep as is at the moment. And finally, your dash you're going to set to a 0 and a 1. And it's going to look like it hasn't changed. But if we put up this here, then you can see that we have got little dots appearing. So let's put this right up. So these are going to be the scallops around the outside of your doily, and ideally what you want is that the circle is going to line up with our dot in the middle, or if you can't do that, we will alter the phase which moves the dots around the line. So if we go 1.5, you can see it's going to go push that up that way a little bit, and it's all controlled by your line width. So that's a little bit over, so I'm just going to pull it back a little. Let's try 29.8. Don't be afraid to get involved with your point figures as well to be able to pull that back. So hopefully you have something that looks like that. Now before we go any further, what we're going to do is we are going to get that stroke and we're going to turn it into an object. So if you go to Layer, Expand Stroke, you're going to see that now you have your dots. And if we zoom in, you'll see that they've just about overlapped in here so that we have two separate lines. Now for the fun bit. We are going to take our pen tool and we're going to click off that for a second, and we're going to just click once where our circle and our guide here intersect. We're going to click once again in the middle and ignore your dash lines at this point. We're going to click again where the circle and our guide intersect. Now you have a couple of options. I'm going to go to the middle point here and I'm just going to put a curve in like so, and we can adapt that in a minute, and we're going to click to close. Now at this point we can go, we don't need a stroke for that shape, but we do need a fill, so we're going to fill it in. So again, if you're working in Illustrator, the dashed line, you can't go to a 0, but you can go to 0.25, and that will give you the same effect for that first dot, and then leave a gap of 1, and you should end up with that same scallop effect. The pen tool, you're going to do exactly the same. Now you'll have noticed that I haven't gone ultra careful when I've drawn that curve, and that's because you just want it so that it's going to go through the middle of those dots very roughly. I'm going to select the two and I'm going to weld them together. So again, you would do that exactly the same in Illustrator. Now we're going to come down to our symbols palette and we're going to go create, and you're going to see that in your layers panel it's going to go to a symbol, and down here we have a preview of that same symbol. We can then click and drag in another 3. Yep, there we go, and one more, there we go. So we're going to take our first one, go up to our handle at the top here, so the little white dot. We're going to press and hold shift, and we're going to take it to 90 degrees. So it's going to be really useful to tell you. So let go when it gets to 90, and then we can align it to that centre point. We can grab our next one, and this time I'm going to go to the left while holding shift, and 90. And that's going to do this side. And finally we're going to take this one all the way around to 180. So now we have something that looks like a doily. Now obviously at the moment our guide circle is now shoved down to the bottom. So if you want to, we're going to unlock it and we can just move that up to the top. So we put that back in and make sure you lock it again. So with symbols you have the added advantage of being able to edit them at any point. Now any edit that you do to one symbol is going to be automatically repeated to every other one, which it makes it really cool for whenever we're doing anything with a border, anything with a repeat, anything where you have multiple copies of the same thing across your page. So if you're doing a batch of stickers, create one as a symbol, multiply it across, and then you can edit away to your heart's content. And all you need to start a symbol is one shape. So if you know that you're doing a batch of round stickers, you can draw a circle that matches that initial sticker, start it as a symbol, drag it back in as many copies as you need, position them, and then you can go back in and do your design. Now in Illustrator it's a little bit different. So in Illustrator what you'll do is you will create one repeat, and then what you will do is actually create that as a pen. So what we do then is we actually have a pen that can draw that design in any direction. So that means if you want to do it as a square, it's nice and simple because it will work out your corners for you in most cases. If you want to do that same design as a circle, it's a click of a button. Simple. But this is where Affinity outshines Illustrator, and probably why you will prefer to do this in Affinity. If you do that outside cut line in Illustrator, you tend to get like a kiss cut effect, which is where we cut the majority of the design, but then where the two actually meet, there's a gap in the cut line, which is great if you're doing a printed sheet that you are sending out to somebody else for them to pull apart and then put together. But if you are doing it for a card for yourself, it's a bit of a pain, just a bit. So that's why I tend to find that Affinity works better, because there's no gap. Okay. Any questions so far, Ian?
No.
Cool.
And your mum is watching on YouTube.
Ha ha ha. Hi, Mum. Okay, so with our next bit we're going to want to step inside for another guide. So how can we do that nice and easily? If we unlock our guide and select it, we can do a Control and J or Command and J depending on if you're on PC or Mac, and you can then see that you've got a second copy of your circle. We can then click on your corner and we're going to press and hold Shift, but if you also use Command or Control on a PC, you're going to see that it pops to the middle. Okay, so you don't have to press it all straight off. If you just press and hold Shift to start with, that is fine. Then you can lower onto your Command key or Control key to go to the centre, and that can give us our guides. So guides are really useful to help us out when we're going, well actually that's the extent of what I want my border to fill. And likewise you could do another one, so if you go Command and J, it's going to jump in again. Okay, which is cool. And you can do as many of those as you need to help you build your design. So if you've planned this all out before on paper, well done, you're doing better than me. Then you can actually start to build it that way. Just make sure that when you've got all your guides that you lock them. So it's that locking that's the really important part. Now you have an option here. Our symbols at the moment are really simple in that we have 4 that are repeating, and if we do a design in there, it's going to repeat 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have an element that you know is going to repeat more times than that per segment, you can do a separate symbol for that. So for instance, if I take my pen tool and I click at the center point here, so make sure you true center, click, okay, and we press and hold Shift, you're going to see that you get a yellow line that's going to help you out here. We can then go, well actually I'm going to go up to that point, I'm going to click. Now at this point you're going, oh that's really wide, we can take that back down. It's just where we did our little scalloped edge, and again we're going to want to go blue. Okay, so this could be another guide that's going to help us create a symbol for this section. So then you can have that repeating in there, in there, in there, in there, in there, in there, in there. So let's first of all work on top of our symbol. Then we can create our new little bit as a symbol in itself, and then we can put that symbol into the other symbol because we can nest. Okay, so who wants to be brave and go for something that's a bit more designed in terms of a shape, or who wants to just use shape tools? You can use either. I'm going to go for, let's go for a heart. I was going to go for a tear tool and do some leaves, but I think I'm going to go for a heart. I'm going to draw a nice little heart like so. Now at the moment it's going to pick up on those previous settings that we changed, but I want it now to go to white, but not quite white. The reason being, if we keep it as like an off-white, whether that's a pink, a beige, your choice, then we know it hasn't been pushed back through that bottom doily yet. So the whole point of this is that at the end of it, we're going to end up with one piece that's going to cut out. And our stroke, you can either remove that altogether and have no stroke, or you could put a black one in if you haven't got a black in your doily. So I'm just going to remove it altogether and just go, nope, doesn't need one. So let's say we want to put this in the middle here. We're going to have them all sitting on this little guideline, like so. you can click off. We could draw another one. So let's go just over here. And we could do another one here. So I'm doing hearts of all kinds of sizes and shapes. Maybe a little bit wider on that one, it looks a bit squished. There we go. And when you have your shape tool selected, you can actually alter how much that dips in. So if you're looking at one and you're thinking, actually that could do with just having a bit more of a dip there, you can actually pull that in. And let's go for another couple like that. I'm going to start this off with a fairly simple repeat because it's only 8. But as you get more confident, you can go down to having 16 as a repeat, so you'd end up with a guide that comes up halfway between these two. And you can get much more complex. So let's zoom in a bit. Now bear in mind that as you zoom in, those shapes are not getting bigger. So don't be tempted to go too small. So if we look in our transform panel, you can see at any point the width and height, and you don't really want this to go below 3 mil. So if anything, these need to go up a little bit in size so that they're a good size for a feature. So let's take that up a little. And up a little that way. Because then we can fill in with smaller elements. So if I start a circle, I can actually change size up here. I can lock it so that it's going to stay a circle, and I can put 3 mil. So I now know that that is the smallest that we should really be setting up our scan and cut for. You can go smaller, but this one kind of, is the best way to go. And I'm just going to use that to fill in the gaps so that we definitely get a feel of this having a circular design. And I'm just pressing and holding Alt and then clicking and dragging to have a copy. And one in there, maybe one over here. Just down there. Maybe move this one. So to move, let go of Alt, and I'm just going to edit that over there. Bring one down here. And bring that, a copy of that one there. Move that one up there a bit. Maybe put another just in there. Same down here. The one just there. Duplicate it. And there you go. And one in there. So, I think I'm happy with that one, except maybe that circle just there. I think that's going to have to move. I'm going to move that up a bit just to make that pattern a bit more sensible just there. Then this one can move up there a bit, this one can move down. Now, if you do anything that overlaps these guides, make sure that they don't do it in the same place, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, when we come to do our duplicate, it's actually going to overlap one another, and yeah, it gets confusing. So if you try and stick so that you, at least initially, have it all within the guides. So are you all crafting along today, or are you going to watch first and craft later? Let's go to layers. And I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top. and then all the way down to the bottom of all of our off-white shapes. So just here. Press and hold shift and click so that they're all selected.
Tracy says what?
We're going to go and create another symbol. Oh, I didn't group it first. Important one. See, look, Natalie does it wrong for a reason. When you have them selected, group them. The reason being, otherwise it doesn't know how many symbols it's supposed to create. And I always forget to do it. So, silly Natalie. So make sure you group. So to group with the keyboard is Command and G or Control and G. So we do have an Affinity cheat sheet.
Yes.
With all the shortcuts. So if you're thinking, oh, there's too much information, then get the cheat sheet and then create the symbol. So because of the colour we've done it, it's going to be a bit hard to see, but they are all there. So hopefully that's coming across on the video, but if not, you can just about see that you've got the pink hearts with the little dots as another symbol. This is where it gets fun. Symbols are like a group, so we can actually drag inside. So I'm going to take my symbol, I'm going to copy it in. Okay, now hopefully at this point it's going to be clever, but no. So with our symbol we want to have two copies. So Command and J, and with this next one we're going to rotate it round and move this down here a bit more. There we go, to 45. Now, here I said about those guides being important, here's where they're important. So just be aware that it can be a bit weird with snapping, so you can use the keyboard to just nudge that into place. Now what I would say is, before we go any further, do any edits to that symbol that you want to do to make your life a little bit easier. Okay, so if there's something in the middle of your symbol, for instance, that you want to change, don't worry about these borders yet, but anything in here that you want to change, do it now so that it repeats back across onto this one. But I'm quite happy with where that is going at the moment. So now what we can do is, with our symbol highlighted, we can detach. So that means that the current selected one is going to change back to being a group. Okay, and we're going to do the same for our other one. So again, we can go detach. Now what is being naughty at the moment is my symbol for this one, which should have already pinged across. So
It's on the wrong one, isn't it? That's the one you're working on.
I can see. There you go. Another reason for having it slightly off-white is you should be able to see when you're in the wrong one. There we go. So let's get the right one. So we want this one and this one. I want to drop it into there. There we go. And then it goes round. And I'll take these two out. There we go. So now what we need to do is consider what's going on in our borders here. So pick either the top or the right hand. Don't try and edit both. And likewise with that one there. So with our shapes grouped, we can now actually go into a group and we can start clicking to actually duplicate shapes. So if you go, oh, I want another heart in the middle, you can click on a heart and drag that in, and that's fine. But if you just want to pinch a couple of circles, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to press and hold Alt, click, and I can drag that in there. And you're going to see, as I'm doing that, it's going to dance around the screen or the other side. So I'm going to do that one there. And again, I'm going to do one here. Now, you can see that just there, it's overlapping underneath the next one. don't panic just yet. You haven't done anything wrong. Okay, so this is the important first step. Don't panic if you can't see all your shape. Because we've got that background shape at the moment, each copy is going to sit on top of itself, if that makes sense. So that particular part of the doily is currently overlapping what you've got going on underneath it. Now, as you get to the latter stages of what you're doing, you're actually going to take those 4 doily shapes and merge those into one first before you do your subtraction. So that means that at that point, that little dot that you can only see half of at the moment, you will see all of it. Okay? So, one thing I might just tweak. So you can double click to edit things as well within the group. So don't feel like you can't do it. Just double click. I'm just going to tweak those just to make that gap a little bit bigger. Otherwise I think when it cuts it might tear. So you should now have something that looks like this. Now how simple was that to create something that looks really complicated? Now, next bit. Once you've done all your drawing and you're happy with all your layout, that's the important bit. Be happy before you do this next bit. I'm going to unlock my guides and I'm going to get rid of them so they can go in the bin. That's an important step because now we're going to be working with lots of shapes and you're going to want to get them out of the way as much as possible. So now I'm going to shift and click and detach. So now they all go to groups. So at this point, if I edit one thing, it's not going to repeat around anymore. You've kind of just gone, right, that's like set in stone. Now we're going to ungroup everything. So Command, Shift and G, and it's going to ungroup. Now we're going to do the black bits first, so don't worry about the pink groups, we're just going to do the black bits. So if you click on the first one, press and hold Command or Control and click on the other 3 pieces, and there's always going to be one that's open. There we go. So that you've just got your black shape selected. We're going to weld those together. Okay, and it's going to put it in the middle for some random reason, but hey ho. We can take that shape and we're going to move it down to the bottom, so just click and drag so that you've got this pale blue line that's going underneath all your layers and all the way across. That's going to pop that down there. Ta-da! So now we can take our remaining groups. We are going to ungroup them so that all individual shapes, and temporarily I'm going to regroup them so they're just one group. Nice and easy to deal with. Now if we were to try and do it at that point, and this is the other thing I want to point out, it's going to say you can weld it by all means, but you can't subtract. Okay, so at this stage, if you want to create something that relies on having these as a shape, so for instance if you were doing like a topper to go in the middle, that you wanted it to line up with certain things, then this is the point that you would do that with it grouped. Then what you would do is you're going to select that group and ungroup it so that you've got all the individual bits, and you want to select that back panel. So if we go all the way down to the bottom, press and hold Command or Control and select that back bit too. You can see that now it's saying yes, you can subtract that, and we can subtract. It's going to think about it and hopefully it won't crash. I say hopefully because, you know, it's had its moments. And there we go. Your doily is done and ready for cutting. Nice and easy. Now, with Illustrator, it is slightly different, and I've got time. Hey! So, let's see.
Do you want to show your export settings quickly as well?
Oh,
Okay,
yes,
so-
very quickly. So, when you get to this point, you go to Export, SVG. Do I want to? Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. And we're going to go to Scan and Cut. It's okay. It's thrown me off there because I was like, I did say the settings. So, just so you can see the settings, because you need to show the settings. When you're exporting to SVG for Scan and Cut, there's a reason why I have one that's just for Scan and Cut. You use the DPI of 96. Okay, that's the most important bit. That gets it to the right scale. So if you are using the online canvas, that at that particular moment would come in size. Down here, there's a little box that says Set View Box. Now, usually as default in Affinity, that will be ticked. You want to untick it, and that makes it come through in the correct size for the offline version of Canvas. Okay, so if you only ever use online, you can use just the DPI and not worry about it. If you're using the offline one, make sure you untick that Set View Box.
This is just to leave now, which will be back tomorrow.
Okay, and next we have Export Text as Curves. Make sure that is ticked for your preset. It's kind of a catch-all, so if you forget to convert your text to curves for cutting, it kind of catches you there and then, but best practice is to do that while you're actually designing. Longer text spans really doesn't make any difference for what we use it for, same with colours. Flatten transforms can be useful to tick if you do a lot of corner rounding. So usually I have that one ticked, I don't know what's not, but hey ho. Use tile patterns is usually if you're designing for a web, which you're not going to be doing if you're using it for a cutter, and that add line breaks is more for debugging if you have an issue with SVG. So finally, if you go to manage presets, if you've changed anything, it will give you the option to create preset. Click on that, call it Scan and Cut. Okay, and I'll leave that on screen for a moment just in case you are wanting to pinch my settings. That's absolutely fine, and they are in the book as well, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to close that and we can go to export. Just going to think about it. And I'm going to go to the desktop. Thank you. New folder. And we'll give it a folder name of Doily. And Doily AD. There you go. And that should say eventually. It's thinking about it, it's getting there. I will also save an Affinity Designer file because obviously the SVG won't keep that symbols data, whereas your Affinity Designer file will. So if at any point you want to go back and just tweak your design, you can do, and just follow those same steps. So hence we haven't deleted our main cross guides, because that's our centre point where it all radiates out from. Do 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 do.
You had time.
I had time, yeah. Come on, Affinity. If not, like I said, I can do part 2 next week.
Maybe.
There we go. So, do a save as, especially given it's playing up. So if ever you find it does that, but it's taking longer to do something than it should do, then do a save at that point. because usually with crashes it does give you a little warning. It will go slow or it'll just seem a bit off. Okay, so shall I risk it for a biscuit or shall I leave it till next week for Illustrator?
At least then, if you left it till next week, then you can at least
take your
take
time.
your time and do it.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking, oh, I've got to rush it all.
Yeah.
Running out of time. If it's another 40 minutes, then it's.
Yeah, it's slightly different in Illustrator. You design it straight even though you want it curved, because Illustrator will then curve it for you. So. Okay. Any questions before we leave it for today? The Christmas house workshop is now pre-booking. We got our test prints yesterday, didn't we? So I'm going to be tasked with building a house later.
That really making sure it all cuts in the right place.
Well, it needs to all cut, and we could do with the photo for the actual workshop would be good. So then you can see how it looks.
Out of all your books, which one is best to teach Affinity design the best?
The latest one, the Designing with Vectors. The others are all really more scan and cut based. Can Ian put the links up? What I will do is I will put a link up in the group and on the page after. But yes, Designing with Vectors is the one you want to go to.
I would look at the link up, but it doesn't work on my phone as well as.
Yeah, yeah, Ian's watching on his iPhone, which is, yeah. Just doesn't do the affiliate links and things, does it? It's not clever enough. So, with that, we will say bye-bye for now, and see you tomorrow when we will be showing you the foil shield, hopefully, fingers crossed. There's been a couple of teething issues this morning, hasn't there, in production, so we're hoping we've got everything crossed. Affinity, once you get used to it, you'll find it is so much easier than everything else though. It's one of those weird ones where it can do both vectors and bitmaps, and it's just getting your head around which bit goes where. So if anybody wants me to show a tutorial on doing more work in Affinity, in particular with the pixel persona, do let me know, and I will try and do a workshop on that, because it won't be everybody's cup of tea. Just because it takes a bit of painting and a bit this and a bit that. YouTube. I can say mummy.
Yeah.
Cool. So take care for now, and I will see you tomorrow with the foil shield, hopefully, and some new foil. So it's got to come because I want to play with the new foil. So take care and bye.